bird flu and sick cows. This is the Change Underground. I'm your host, John. Decarbonise the air, recarbonise the soil. Welcome to the Series 9 bonus episode. Quote, on March 16, cows on a Texas dairy farm began showing symptoms of a mysterious illness, now known as H5N1 bird flu. These symptoms were nondescript, but their milk production dramatically dropped and turned thick and creamy yellow. The next day, cats at the farm that had consumed some of the raw milk from the sick cows also became ill. While the cows would go on to largely recover, the cats weren't so lucky. They developed depressed mental states, stiff body movements, loss of coordination, circling, copious discharge from the eyes, nose, and blindness. By March 20, half of the farm's 24 or so cats had died from the flu. End quote. Whilst we've been discussing the benefits of regen ag during this season of the pod, there is still an economic model in livestock production which rewards treating stock as machinery parts. The Henry Ford Model T systemic approach to living beings. We will all recall from the unpleasantness of 2020-21 that offices where people are crowded in like cattle at feedlots were closed down due to increased risk of transmission. Well, the livestock systems developed as CAFOs, confined animal feeding operations, are not dissimilar to those office setups. I realise that might just have been a circular argument, but anyway, you know what I mean. The above quote that I quoted at the beginning comes from the CNN website and is the opening paragraph of a piece entitled "Cats Suffer H5N1 Brain Infections, Blindness and Death After Drinking Raw Milk." You will recall, I'm sure, the most infections of humans develop in wild species, usually birds, and then jump across to a mammal of some sort, and then, if we're really unlucky, into humans. If you set out to develop a system to enhance the transference of wild viruses to humans to another mammal vector, you'd pretty much design the CAFO system. On top of that, you'd dose animals regularly with preventative, in inverted commas, antibiotics to help keep them alive long enough to be slaughtered in an abattoir. The bonus of adding regular antibiotic doses to the system is antibiotic resistance. So we now have a situation where bird flu, specifically the variant H5N1, has been devastating wild bird populations for at least 5 years, probably longer, and transmitting to mammals in the wild, sea lions, seals and their ilk, and causing deaths in those populations. These were probably cases of carnivores eating deceased or nearly deceased infected birds, not from sea lion to sea lion infections, we can hope. At that point in the evolution of the virus, we're pretty safe from it becoming another worldwide event. I'm loath to use the standard word the World Health Organization used during 2020 and beyond, because that will have the content flagged as some sort of conspiracy, which of course this is not. What's changed? As the quote revealed, the H5N1 is now endemic in some cattle herds, transmitting between mammals and across species. In the more crowded poultry production systems, transmission to humans has occurred as per the following quote from the World Health Organization's Avian Flu Weekly Update, number 945, dated the 3rd of May 2024. Quote, from 1 January 2003 to 28 March 2024, a total of 254 cases of human infection with avian influenza A, the H5N1 virus, have been reported from 4 countries within the Western Pacific region. Table 1. Table 1 will be in the transcript on the website. Of these cases, 141 were fatal, resulting in a case fatality rate of 56%. The last cases in the Western Pacific region were reported from Vietnam with an onset date of the 11th of March 2024. End quote. As I say, Table 1 referred to is included in the transcript over at World Organic News under the heading Series 9 Bonus. So a fatality rate of 56% in humans, that's a concern. Having seen the effects upon people, cultures, politics and world trade with a pathogen with an order of magnitude smaller fatality rate, We can assume this is a thing we should be taking seriously. A good first step would be to close the CAFOs and put the livestock back on the soil where they do good rather than create manure ponds to contaminate groundwater, rivers and streams. This podcast has covered ad infinitum the benefits of livestock on soil for soil health, carbon sequestration and animal health, so I'll not go over that again here. In the meantime, we need to monitor the health status of stock handlers, clearly cats, who may be the new canaries in the coal mine, and the waste milk products, meat and eggs from these CAFOs. Foot and mouth disease destroys livestock systems. H5N1 could do that and wipe out half of humanity. Woohoo! Any cursory reading of the effects of the Black Death with a 25 to 40% fatality rate shows society was upended. Some winners, some losers, and many deaths led to traumatised populations. Toss in a dose of socials, misinformation and divided polity and the outcomes could be difficult to predict, none of which would be pleasant. What's to be done after we end CAFOs? The price incentives in the EU and the USA through farm subsidies could be tweaked towards a more sustainable application of agriculture towards the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Instead of subsidising corn into ethanol, those funds could be redirected towards fencing, stockyards, shedding and housing to set farming units on the path to regenerative ag practices. Educational outreach, which worked remarkably well with chemical farming, could be redirected towards equipping farmers with different skills that they require for a regenerative approach. Those would be the carrots. The stick would be slapping a levy on all CAFO-produced meat, eggs and dairy to cover the real cost in environmental health and animal welfare terms that are cost-shifted through the economy away from the producers. Added to this, we could launch antitrust or anti-competitive actions, depending on where you are in the world, against the huge food conglomerates dominating world food production. They keep growing like a cancer, perhaps. JBS, a Brazilian-based meat packing company, purchased a sea-based CAFO here in Tasmania producing salmon, destroying seabeds with fish droppings and shooting electrocuting seals attracted to the, in inverted commas, free feed of salmon. Moving all ocean-based fish farming onto the land would provide huge benefits to the sea and to the land, where the waste, in inverted commas, could be better utilised for crop pasture fertiliser. But I digress a little. CAFO is a CAFO is a CAFO. So the point of this bonus episode, whilst there were 102 years between the Spanish flu and our own unpleasant years, there is no guarantee it will be another 102 before the next version drops on us from a great height. We have unintentionally created the systems to capture, evolutionarily modify, and spread any number of pathogens. If you can grow at least some of your food, work animals into your systems, avoid perhaps poultry, maybe, then you'll be okay. We have chooks and I find them very calming to just sit with. They do suffer badly from the H5N1 variants, apparently. Well, the ducks appear to be asymptomatic, and we have both. This is a thing I'm giving great thought to. Rabbits would be a replacement, meat for eggs, protein is protein. But, bacon and rabbit for breakfast just doesn't sound the same as bacon and eggs. I keep an eye on the poultry every day for signs of illness, but that 50% fatality rate does tend towards a general cull and a different option. Anyway, forewarned is forearmed and so forth, so make your decisions. I'll be back next week with episode 9 in season 9 that would have dropped today, but for the bonus episode forcing itself out of my fingertips and onto the airwaves of the interwebs. Until then, decarbonise the air, recarbonise the soil, and thank you for listening. This has been a JM Podcasting Services production. Link in the show notes.